The total number of coronavirus cases in South Africa has increased by 13 to 51. Gauteng has reported 7 new cases, the Western Cape 5 and KwaZulu-Natal 1. All the new cases relate to people who've travelled to Europe. Last night, Health Minister Dr. Zweli Mkhize held an urgent National Health Council meeting with all the provincial health MECs and head of departments. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the latest situational analysis of each province as more coronavirus cases emerge. Well, they concluded that contact tracing must be done within 48 hours. Well, President Cyril Ramaphosa has convened a special cabinet meeting for today to discuss ways of intensifying the battle against the COVID-19 coronavirus in South Africa. For a little bit more about what's been going on and what we can expect afterwards, we cross now live to our political reporter Samkele Maseko, who's at the Union Buildings. Samkele, thanks very much for joining us. I suppose predictably it's been a long day. There's a lot to discuss and lots of expectation now, I guess, South Africans waiting to hear.
Yes, indeed. South Africans will definitely be hearing from President Cyril Ramaphosa at 5 o'clock this evening, in the words of Mrs. Kusela Diko, the spokesperson of President Cyril Ramaphosa. But it looks as if whatever decisions that may have been taken in this meeting have been communicated to the governing party, as some communique has come from that particular building at Luthuli House, that certain decisions have been taken, and that their Secretary General Ace Magashule is also on standby to speak to the nation on these particular issues that have been ventilated here in this all-important urgent cabinet meeting. But I'm going to move over and allow the Minister in the Presidency, Jackson Mthembu, to also just give a brief overview on this particular matter to the nation as well.
Thank you very much, colleagues. As we have indicated, the President will be speaking to the nation at 5 o'clock this afternoon. We have just concluded the special cabinet meeting that was convened by the President to discuss and look deeper and dive deeper into the crisis that we are faced with of coronavirus, COVID-19. Of course, the President will also indicate to you that the Cabinet has looked at all impacts, matters that impact on our people as a consequence of coronavirus. But we will leave the speaking to him as he speaks to the nation. That's all that we wanted to say to you, that at 5 o'clock, we have a date with the President where the President will then outline what are the measures South Africa is taking in dealing with this crisis called coronavirus. Thank you very much. Yep.
Minister Mthembu, just a quick one from the SABC. What are some of the issues that have been ventilated within the special cabinet meeting that have also been communicated to the SGO office at Luthuli House? Is that those include travel bans? What are the restrictions? And one of the students at Wits University who was under quarantine and being tested for this virus, what are the preemptive measures that are being taken in higher education, which is an area that encompasses those who are both impoverished and those who are relatively rich, who may have the means to travel abroad to these countries affected by this virus? What are those discussions?
Can we, again, as we have said, the President will speak to the nation at 5 o'clock, let me repeat myself, and say what are the decisions of Cabinet, what measures Cabinet is taking on behalf of the people of South Africa to deal with the coronavirus, COVID-19. And the President will be able to answer your questions. Of course, in his speech, in what he'll be delivering to the nation, he'll be able to answer the question that you are asking now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you,
I know that you like taking chances, of course.
Well, that was the minister in the presidency, Jackson Mthembu, who says the meeting has concluded and he doesn't want to let the cat out of the bag. I'm going to wrestle him here and ask him, Minister Mthembu, just brief the nation. What are some of the decisions? Just one. Come on. Come on.
First decision will indeed be articulated by the President at 5 o'clock. Second decision by the President at 5 o'clock. Third decision, etc.
Are you closing the borders? Are you closing the borders?
The President will speak to you at 5 o'clock.
Has the SG at Luthuli House been notified of the decisions?
The President will speak to you at 5 o'clock. Thank you very much.
That was classic Jackson Mthembu, not wanting to answer anything, but indeed the President will address the nation at 5 o'clock this particular afternoon, and those decisions have been communicated to the governing party, as we've just communicated with some of our sources at the governing party's SGO office, who said that decisions have been communicated with them, and the Secretary General S. Magashule will brief the media here as well on the sidelines on the decisions that have taken by their executive governing seat. Yesterday, speaking to Jesse Duarte, the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, she did indicate that the President will be addressing the nation this afternoon on this COVID-19 coronavirus. You understand that 114 South Africans have been repatriated from China and are currently in quarantine in Polokwane. As Minister Zweli Mkhize did tweet on how they are doing. They've all tested negative on this particular COVID-19 virus, but it was with anticipated breath that many South Africans are sitting at home on social media waiting to hear from the number one citizen, the CIC, the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, the President of the Republic of South Africa. Many political parties in Parliament have called on for travel bans to be instituted by this particular government on those countries largely affected by this COVID-19 coronavirus, particularly those coming from the European Union countries, the UK. You'd look at the measures that Italy is currently on lockdown, Spain is currently on partial lockdown. You look at the restrictions and the positions that have been imposed by the Rwandan government. But South Africans, 5 o'clock, indeed, the President will be live on SABC News this particular afternoon, updating the nation.
Samkele, I suppose that with the fact that all the new cases relate to people that have travelled, that's probably the place they're going to start to try and contain this in terms of restricting movement.
Well, let me bring in Mzwandile Mbecho on this particular matter, on what the decisions may have been taken in this particular cabinet. Mzwandile, you've just had the Minister and the President, Jackson Mthembu, saying the President will address the nation at 5 o'clock this afternoon. What can we anticipate?
Well, the issue of travel bans is definitely going to come up. And the issue of banning certain gatherings or even sports is definitely going to come up. And then a number of restrictions, really. But as you've heard, those will be then narrated even further by the ministers, and they're saying tomorrow. So what they wanted the President to do today is to communicate that main message, to say as a country, these are the kinds of actions that we have taken. I mean, Samkele, if you look at the cases that we have, all of them, perhaps with the exception of Brazil and Iran, come from Europe. And clearly, whatever action that the country must take, must really take into account. Yes, China is the original epicenter, but as you are and I know that the Europe right now is the epicenter, so they are not able to arrest this virus. So I really expect perhaps the closure of the big gatherings, travel bans, and basically the issue of schools may also be affected, because we've just heard that there's been a case at VETS right now. I'm sure the VETS community would not want to go to VETS at the moment. So you need to take those precautionary measures. So I think that's the kind of direction that we'll take.
What is rather interesting here, we've always heard politicians, particularly within the governing party, saying that power is located within Luthuli House. Amandla as a Luthuli House. In this instance, it looks as if whatever decisions have been taken have been communicated to the 6th floor of the SGO office at Luthuli House. You look at the Deputy Secretary General yesterday, Jesse Duarte, letting the cat out of the bag that the President would be addressing the nation. What do we take and make sense out of the cordiality and this relationship that seems to be in place between Luthuli House and the Union buildings that has always been fractious at times?
Well, remember, they are government here. but they've been sent by a political party, in this instance, the African National Congress, which is based at Luthuli House. And then given the kind of pressure from the public, from ordinary people to say, we voted for you a little over, is it 8 months or 10 months ago, and then please do something. And then it would make sense for those who have been sent by the governing party to lead government to then time and again check with their organization what is it that they would do. So it doesn't really surprise me at all, because the kind of pressure that was coming from the people, ordinary people everywhere, and that pressure was also being put on the governing party to say, so what are you guys doing? So we need something tangible. And I think that's what the president is going to do today, express those decisions. And I can tell you, South Africans will take nothing less than very tough measures to contain this, because you don't want to go the situation of Italy, of Iran, when it was at early stages. They were quite lax about it. Look now, they can't arrest it. It's too huge. So as early as now, we are not even at 100. So if as a country we decide that we take a decision and we implement it, we have to be decisive so that this thing doesn't spread. Because, I mean, if it spreads, we were talking earlier to say, if it then permeates the ordinary people, the densely populated areas where people don't have access to issues like clinic and stuff like that, it will really be a catastrophe for our country.
When you look at the current economic environment that the country is in, you look at how the economy is not growing at the rate that the government would want. They are not in their own numbers envisioned by the National Development Plan, which President Cyril Ramaphosa once chaired himself. Where does this leave Cabinet in some of the decisions that they have made in order to not basically plunge the South African economy down?
Well, currently there's not much you can do if you want to save the situation. So whatever action you are taking will somehow impact the economy, and unfortunately negatively. But of course that negative is meant to correct the situation, because at this stage really, yes, we have to think about the economic situation. That's why earlier we were speaking about the issue of the rate cut at the MPC, and of course the stimulus package, because those will be quite crucial in cushioning the country. Because this kind of decisions, as soon as, let's say, you ban people from Europe or from elsewhere, already the tourism industry has been affected. So that says our economy somehow is losing a lot of money. But as government, do something to try and mitigate that. So that's what they should do. So those are the kind of details that the ministers must share with us when they expand on these measures that the president would have announced.
It's very rare that we as the media sometimes comment certain ministers, but the communication of Minister of Health, Dr. Zwelin Mkhize, has been on point. Has updated the nation on a toe-to-toe basis, on an each-to-each case on this particular COVID-19 virus. They've done exceptionally well as a department on this particular issue. But the all-important issue and the crux of the day is, how do you maintain the spreading of this virus and stop it and halt it? Because you can update the nation how many people have contacted it now, but how do you stop the spreading of it? Have they done an effective job in that regard?
The answer to your question should be in 2 hours. So when the president stands on this podium and speaks to the nation, he must be able to answer directly. You and I are suggesting some of the ways how this thing can be somehow arrested. But let's be perhaps honest and be fair. This thing has never happened before. No one knows what exactly to do. But you do that which you think at the time should be able to have an impact. So that is why I am saying, personally, I think the issue of banning people from Europe is most immediate. Why? All the cases that we have are from Europe. So it means if we had, let's say, imposed that ban a couple of weeks ago, so we wouldn't be having those cases. So let's arrest it before it gets in. Sorry.
What happens to our relations, for instance, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of England, and the issues that are being raised there, their own economy, their own issues that they are facing? Where does that leave the trade relations between South Africa and the United Kingdom, the EU? Where does that leave the trade relations between South Africa and China?
Fortunately, this is not a country-to-country issue. This is a global issue. Remember, we live in a global village. So yes, will be affected negatively with China or with UK, but so will the US, so will Italy, so will Brazil. So we are basically as the world. So I'm somehow reminded of the depression of the 1930s, that this virus has the potential of taking us back to the 1930s when the world experienced the depression. But it will be up to the leadership, those that we have elected globally, to rise to the occasion. So how will we take ourselves out of the situation? We cannot avoid this. I mean, if everyone is locking down their country, is not allowing anyone to come in, so necessarily, because we interact with each other, we trade with each other, so there will certainly be a negative impact. But the test will be, how do we rise? So it happened in the 1930s, that generation rose. Will we?
There was a global economic meltdown about a decade ago where the world economy was basically plunged into a recession. Are we going towards that route again with this particular COVID-19 virus?
Very possible. It's very, very possible. I mean, many economies will be contracting. I mean, ours has already contracted. I mean, I'm sure the next release of the results will probably show further contraction, because the economic activity is basically grinding to a halt, and not only here but everywhere else. So that kind of stimulus package, that assistance from government, that assistance from Reserve Bank, so surely should go some way to try and mitigate this.
Mr. Mbeje, we wait with anticipated breath on what the first citizen, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, will say to the nation when he briefs the nation. In fact, I'm just going to stop out of shot, and you can see the teleprompter is being set, the stage is being set for the first citizen, number one, to address the nation on the decisions that they have taken when it comes to this COVID-19 virus and how they will be responding to it so that it doesn't spread to more South Africans, and in particular to those that they represent, the downtrodden, the poor, the marginalized and the impoverished. But the critical question is, what will they do in government to make sure that the South African economy is not further plunged into a recession and that not more South Africans eventually die or any fatalities out of this COVID-19 virus? There have been none thus far, and number one and his cabinet looks set to try and put some measures in place. They've been working hand in hand in collaboration with Luthuli House, the governing party's headquarters in Johannesburg, on this particular matter. The cat was let out of the bag by the Deputy Secretary General, Jesse Duarte, yesterday when she said that President Cyril Ramaphosa may be addressing the nation yesterday evening or Sunday afternoon, and it's proven to be correct, with Matamela Ramaphosa, the president, taking the stand on this particular podium that my colleague is going to show you now on my left, where the president will be standing, and he will be addressing the nation at 5 o'clock this afternoon, live on SABC channel 404 on DSTV and SABC 2 this particular afternoon.